Like I mentioned a couple videos ago, I've been hard at work in my free time on a basketball boss rush game prototype. And that led me to research arguably the greatest boss rush video game of all time, Punch-Out on the Wii. The perfect cel-shaded art style, insane animation personality, grueling but fair difficulty. This Punch-Out by Next Level Games is perfection. It got me interested in Little Mac, the game's unlikely lead, but the deeper I dug for Little Mac facts, the sadder I got. Going through 30 years of this man's history has led me to one conclusion. Despite his amazing games, all Little Mac knows is pain. Let's talk about it. Today's video is brought to you by Raycon, premium wireless earbuds at half the price with no compromises in high quality sound or comfort. Raycon sent me the everyday E25 earbuds. They come in a variety of colors and they give you 6 different sizes of swappable gel tips to make sure that they stay comfortable and stay in your ears no matter what you're doing. Raycon was co-founded by singer Ray J and is used by celebrities all over the world, like Mike Tyson. Yeah, that Mike. The same one that's been laying the beat down on Little Mac for over 30 years. I use my Raycons every day. COVID shut my gyms down, and Illinois winter makes basketball not very reasonable. So I got a cheap treadmill to help me stay active indoors. I'll be honest, running and walking is kind of boring, but Raycons help me get away from the screens and still have fun while doing it. I've been using them to get lost in a new album, listen to my favorite podcast, and even find sci-fi audiobooks. It's been a great part of my daily routine. With high-quality bass, simple Bluetooth pairing, and 6 hours of playtime, Raycons are easy to use every day, and they pump up every workout that I do. If you're looking to make already affordable wireless earbuds even cheaper, click on the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/thejwits for an additional 15% off. They're so confident that you'll love them that they even offer a 45-day free return policy. Thanks to Raycon for helping support this channel. So today we're going to talk about the hurtful history of Little Mac. Let's punch in. Unlike most series mascots, Little Mac's creation was not at the start of his franchise. Punch-Out is even older than the Famicom and NES, starting its adventure on the good old-fashioned arcade cabinets. Nintendo's first Punch-Out dropped in late 1983 with a unique dual-monitor boxing experience, featuring this unnamed green-haired guy? For a majority of the game, your very average height boxing challenger is shown in a green wireframe mode, which lets you view the colorful and admittedly stereotypical boxers in front of you to get a better view to dodge their attacks through your character. This original arcade release then got an add-on arcade expansion featuring all new bosses called Super Punch-Out. And in one of the most forgotten pieces of Punch-Out brand history, there was also arm wrestling. It wasn't until 1987 that our little legend was given life. So after almost 4 years, why unpack the Mac now? The answer is that the NES sucked. Well, it sucked compared to the processing power of arcade cabinets. The 8-bit NES just couldn't replicate the wireframe effect in a graphically appealing way. So instead, they decided to make a comically tiny main character so that you could more easily see your opponents looming over you. Hailing from the Bronx and listed at the time as just 4'8" and 107 pounds, Little Mac is the ultimate underdog. Combined with the washed-up heavyweight star Doc Lewis, this unlikely duo tackles insurmountable odds, and even sizing up against the most powerful boxer in the world at the time. Little Mac is a joke. Literally, he is a joke. It is meant to be funny that he can even compete. His name, Little Mac, is a joke, playing off the popular McDonald's hamburger. Even his hard-fought victory at the hands of the player is treated as a joke. Just look at this newspaper.
Daddy, come back home!
No, not that part. This part! Look at that. April Fool's Day. It's a joke. Little Mac gets no respect. Even the Nintendo comic system builds on this framework. In fact, I'd argue that's even more mean-spirited. Give it up, Mac. Retire. You're just a loser from the Bronx. You weren't born to be a fighter. Yet, despite it all, the NES Punch-Out titles, sometimes featuring Mike Tyson, but always featuring Little Mac, is where the franchise really began to blow up. No longer a quarter-feeding arcade machine, this new Punch-Out had extreme difficulty to keep the player in long gameplay sessions. Not only did this make for a more memorable gaming experience, but this also helped build the Little Mac mythos. You might be small and you might be light, but with the right training, good reflexes, and a little luck, even the most unlikely hero can go the distance. Punch-Out on the NES and Famicom sold over 3 million cartridges, even outselling other classics like Kirby's Adventure, Dragon Quest II, and Metroid. Little Mac even makes a brief appearance on the 1989 TV show Captain N. The game they chose for Alex playing before he got sucked into the TV was this classic Punch-Out. Little Mac got some Topps trading cards, got some action figures. He was on top. He was popular. So naturally, we wouldn't see him again for another 20 years. In 1994, we got Super Punch-Out for the Super Nintendo. Yes, there are now completely different games called Punch-Out and completely different games called Super Punch-Out. It might be a return to the ring, but not for the true king. Who is that? That's not Little Mac. The instruction booklet doesn't call him Little Mac, the game doesn't call him Little Mac. You get to call him whatever you want. There's no Doc Lois. This is an imposter. According to David Sheff's 1994 book, Game Over, Little Mac's original character name for the NES was Peter Punch. I don't care what stray Nintendo of America promotional material says about this blondie. That is not Little Mac. I will forever call this guy Peter Punch. With the power of the Super Nintendo, the game's designers decided to go back to emulating the feel of the original Punch-Out for arcade, giving us a normal-sized generic boxer that could also turn transparent to allow you to see the opponent in front of you. Strangely enough, early promotional material for the game reveals that Little Mac was originally the game's protagonist. It's very obvious this was based on the original design. No one has ever officially commented on why we ended up getting this guy instead. Super Punch-Out is a solid game, and it reviewed decently, but it just didn't hit the stellar sales of its predecessors. Punch-Out as a series would step out of the spotlight for a long time after this. Over a decade later, Nintendo makes one of its weirdest promotional moves of all time, working with EA to get Nintendo character appearances in its GameCube versions of sports titles. But then there's Fight Night Round 2, their boxing game. There was only one Nintendo character right for this job. The Nintendo character who already has a history of fighting real-life boxers.
From Tokyo, Japan!
Okay, well, actually he's from the Bronx, but I guess I can excuse that error if they—
Little Mac!
Oh, you gotta be kidding me! The GameCube version of the game even came with a full emulation of Super Punch-Out, starring, of course, Peter Punch. Little Mac is still nowhere to be found. The year is 2008. A super quirky game called Captain Rainbow releases exclusively in Japan on the Wii. It's an adventure game from the Chibi Robo devs, and it's all about a forgotten superhero stranded on an island full of forgotten Nintendo characters. This is Nintendo's Isle of Misfit Toys, featuring forgotten Nintendo characters like the soldiers from Famicom Wars, Hikari from Shin Onigashima, and your boy, not Peter Punch, the one, the only, oh no. It looks like Little Mac had one too many Big Macs. And it's up to you to get him back into fighting shape with a crappy motion control minigame. If anything describes the place that Little Mac has in the Nintendo mythos at this point in time, it's this. He is a complete and utter oaf. But after much effort, we do get the closest thing we've seen to a prime Little Mac on a Nintendo home console. Shoutouts to Kirameki, by the way, for helping produce a fan translation for Captain Rainbow. It's a ridiculous game that I've wanted to play for a long time, even if it is a game that does my boy dirty. The end of this decade marked a huge turning point in Mac's career. Little Mac was back. The real Little Mac. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Little Mac was an assist trophy, keeping his iconic tiny size and powerful punch. More on that later, because obviously if you're watching this video today, you know what comes next. But most importantly, we come full circle, back to Punch-Out for the Wii. I already said it, but this game is just so unbelievably good. It's like a FromSoft game built 100% out of boss fights. Not only does it strike a perfect balance of puzzle-based and reaction-based boss battles, but this game is clearly a massive love letter to everything that made the NES game great. So many old animations and moves are modernized, and even without the Mike Tyson license, they found a great way to keep some of his iconic moves and attitude with the new revamped Mr. Sandman. And even though this game came with all kinds of classic Wii motion gimmicks, including the absolute masochism of playing with a Wii balance board, this game is 100% playable and optimal with a sideways Wiimote just like an old NES controller. Critics loved it, and while it wasn't a cultural milestone the way that the original was, it's still one of just 60 Wii titles to sell over 1 million copies. It even had multiplayer, which, I've barely touched. It did give us the horrifying Gigamac power-up though, which devs really wanted to call Big Mac, but avoided due to obvious legal trouble. In keeping with our theme of Little Mac constantly getting the short end of the stick, he also has a bonus game that was lost to time. Doc Lewis's Punch-Out was released as a Club Nintendo download-only title in 2009, and once more in 2015. It's a single boss fight with 3 different difficulties as you spar with none other than the Doc himself. They found the perfect way to make this fight both entertaining and challenging, and it's a shame that this one game is sort of lost to history outside of emulation or hacking now. I mean, Scott Pilgrim got a physical release, so anything is possible, but for a single DLC, the odds aren't looking great. In the game's final mode, Mac's Last Stand, Little Mac agrees with Doc that he wants to go out on top before he loses his luster. When you lose 3 matches in this mode, the game's ending cutscene plays.
Good job, son. Good job.
What an absolute gut punch! As sad as this scene makes me, it still feels pretty fitting as a metaphor for Little Mac's original run on the NES. He showed up, rocked the world as a surprisingly entertaining underdog, and retired from the world while still being fondly remembered. Unfortunately, Little Mac is not as fondly remembered these days, thanks to a little series called
Super Smash Brothers!
At face value, this seems like an absolute win for our boy. In perfect underdog fashion, Little Mac makes the first jump up from Super Smash Bros. Assist Trophy into a fully fledged character. We also saw the return of Big Mac, which, overall though, his unique playstyle seemed like it would be an interesting new addition to the roster, and a great representation for a retro gaming icon. But there's just one problem, and it's kind of a big one. Everyone hates Little Mac. There's just no winning for this guy. For example, a bunch of Japan was angry at his inclusion right out of the gates. Like Metroid, the Punch-Out franchise has always been one that was way more popular in the West, despite originating from a Japanese company. And then there's the gameplay. When Little Mac first dropped for Smash Bros. 3DS, casual players complained that Little Mac was simply too good. Now, I'm a longtime fan of the competitive scene of this game, but there's no denying that casual players make up a majority of the Smash Bros. Fan base. And for a casual player, mechanics like super armor or a death bar that grants you a one-hit KO feel really unfair. Players begin to storm message boards in droves. Articles start cropping up complaining about him. Everyone starts playing as him because they think it will give them easy wins. And the irony, as many of you know, is that Little Mac was terrible! Sakurai posts an article in response to all of this, stating that Little Mac has by far the worst win ratio of any character in online data. He gives the impression of being able to win easier than other fighters, which leads to more people using him. But in reality, he's a difficult character to actually continuously win with. And this ended up being true. While there were obviously highly skilled players that could do nasty things with the character, there's no denying that he was toward the bottom of Smash 3DS and Wii U tier lists. And in Smash Ultimate, he is at the bottom of the barrel. with some top players even arguing that he is straight up the worst character in the game. It turns out that having good aerial options is sort of important in a platform fighter. And whether people hated him because he was too good or hated him because he's too bad, Smash fans still seem to agree that he simply isn't fun to play against. While it is fitting to see Little Mac in a situation where he has to overcome great odds, it's just sad to see this character in a position where people are unhappy with his existence. It's especially sad when I realize just how long it took for Little Mac to start existing again in video games at all. Whether it's being the butt of a joke, being replaced, losing a game, drawing the hatred of fighting game fans, or getting repeatedly punched in the face in his games, it's clear to me that Little Mac walks a very challenging path. Just this year, Nintendo announced that they acquired Next Level Games, developers of that amazing Wii Punch-Out! It's very clear that they loved the project, and it was nice to catch that little reference to it in Luigi's Mansion 3. Don't get me wrong, I would love a new Punch-Out! From that team to make it onto the Switch. But then again, I just played Punch-Out! Wii to make this video, and it's just as good as it was 10 years ago. In my opinion, these are some of the best designed bosses in all of video games. They are that fun to fight and refight over and over again as Little Mac. If you told me that Little Mac will never get another video game, that actually might be perfect. Because, at least in his own titles, he got to go out on top.